Welcome to Culture Alchemy, where we do a deep dive into film, TV, music, and the stories and trends lighting up the group chat. We'll discuss what it means, why it matters, and how it shapes us. I'm Antoinette.
And I'm Andrew. Each week we've got pop culture's hottest takes served fresh. We're turning pop culture into pure gold. This is Culture Alchemy.
Hey everybody, hey Andrew.
Hey Antoinette, how are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I finally finished season 3 of White Lotus, so I'm all caught up.
I'm so excited to get into it with you. I know I've been waiting for you to finish it so we can dive in, and I can't wait to hear all of your thoughts on not only season 3, but yeah, seasons 1 and 2 as well.
It's a lot to unpack. I went I binged hard, these 3 seasons, and obviously the third season is most fresh in my mind, and I'm sure a listener's mind, and everyone's talking about White Lotus. SNL just had that skit, the White POTUS, which was hilarious. Um, but we're going to start with season 1. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive in. What were your overall thoughts of the season?
Yeah, so this is the best thing on television right now. I'm glad you told me to watch it, and I'm definitely hooked. I love the first season. Just the writing is amazing. The characters are so good. Um, just hilarious scenes too. I was I was trying to figure out when I was watching, is this a comedy or is this a drama or is this a satire? Um, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's a comedy or do you think it's a drama?
That's a great question. I think I would say I'll meet you in the middle. I'll say it's a dramedy. I definitely see how it can be classified as a satire. I think that would be exactly how Mike White would classify it too. And I think each season does have maybe a little bit more influence in either the drama or comedy bucket. So we can also get into our ranking of the seasons as well. But season 1 for me definitely played with um, dramedy in a very intentional and a fresh way. So yeah, I think both. I think season 1 was really hilarious and also very dark as well too. I think it combined both
Yeah.
pretty well.
Did you have any favorite characters from season 1 or?
Armand, I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
Armand is definitely my favorite character. I love the character Armand, the sort of overzealous and meticulous resort manager who just wants to do his very best. I truly believe at the beginning of the season we're introduced to him, and he runs a pretty tight ship. But I think he is a character who, to your earlier point, brings a lot of comedic relief. Um, Also is involved in a lot of really memorable scenes, which I'm sure we'll get into as well. And I like what Armand represents in terms of, which I think is something Mike White does really well in general, is that nobody is really all good or all bad. I think, um, he's Armand is an example of a character that I think wants to do well. And I think because of a simple oversight ends up getting caught up in a um, a pissing match, so to speak, with one of the more pretentious guests at the White Lotus, which sets a whole chain of events in motion. But otherwise, I do think he's a character who obviously we find out as the season rolls on has many, many sort of tragic flaws, but I also think is a good person, and I like that flawed sort of hero. I think there's something about Armand's journey that I find really, really fascinating, and yeah, I just found him to be just really funny in ways I don't think he was being intentionally funny as well, which I think makes him a really compelling character.
That's a great choice. I was going to ask you about Armand. Do you think, I mean, does he hate his job, or is it he just hates like dealing with these people every day? Is that, do you think he enjoys his job, or do you think he hates his job?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a really great question. Because we only see what we see presented to us in that 1 week of action. And I that's a great question. So I actually think I'm going to go ahead and say that he actually likes his job, but as he says in the show, and it's one of my favorite quotes from the show from season one, he calls it tropical kabuki. And I think that quote is a really important one, because it does speak to this idea of he knows that he's putting on a performance. He knows that he is kind of waiting on these rich, and I think he would probably say somewhat spoiled, um, children of the hotel. So, there's a point where he talks about the oversight, giving the wrong room to the wrong guest with one of the other staff members of the White Lotus. And he, says something as well that I also noted down, one of my favorite quotes from the first season that really explains, I think, um, perhaps his attitude towards the guests, which might shed some light on the question that you're asking around whether he likes it or not. But he basically says, like, when speaking with the guests, that they want to be the only child, the special chosen baby child of the hotel, and we're their mean mommies denying them their pineapple room. And I think that yeah, that quote really it really sums up Armand's feelings towards the guest, although they're there usually spending major cash because they're typically coming from extreme wealth. I think in some ways he maybe looks down on them, in fact. And I think he's a man of principle. I think he's someone who really takes pride, as we saw from his final supper. Um, he takes pride in what he does. I think he takes pride in his work. I'm going to go on a limb here and just too long didn't read. Basically, to answer your question, I think he likes his job. Um, but I do think he, you know, like anyone who's worked in hospitality will know all too well, that sometimes you just don't like the people. Sometimes the people can be really difficult to deal with. But that's a great question, Drew, because we don't know a lot about Armand's backstory prior to getting to the White Lotus. We don't know if maybe he fell into this job. There's a lot of question marks there too, right? Around the character. So I'd love to know what are your thoughts on Armand and how he feels about his work.
Oh yeah, he's a great character, and one of my favorite scenes is the Last Supper. You know, when he just nails the dinner, and I think he does enjoy his job for the most part, but he's dealing with these guests, including being tormented by Shane, um, Jake, Shane. I was going to say the actor who plays Jake is Shane Patton, but Jake, constantly talking about him getting booked in the wrong room and just like not letting that go, right? And he starts coping with the drugs he finds in Olivia and Paula's backpacks. So I think he's just like really stressed, this in his dealing with these guests in particular. But I think overall he does enjoy his job.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to believe that, um he showed us a little bit of that gusto in that Last Supper scene. And it is such a great scene because it does really highlight the peak of his sort of, you know, of sort of his I don't give a anymore. Kind of like it's really when he knows now
Zero
that
F's to give, right?
yeah, it's just. He knows that now at this point he's likely going to lose his job, which his response to that is another reason why I believe he actually does like his job. Because if you look at everything he did throughout the first season, he really made an effort to try to please this, as you said earlier, this one customer who just could not be pleased. Uh, the only the only error he made really, I think, was that unfortunately he didn't fess up to the oversight, and then it became this like this grudge match between the two of them. And so I think, yeah, he was cooked from the beginning, but of course, he did everything in his power to prevent it. And the fact that he took so many steps along the way to try to placate Shane, the character who wanted the pineapple room, that tells me that he does care about his job. He does care about how he's perceived. And I think Armand's, yeah, Last Supper was 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 an amazing scene, just because of the comedy, the heightened comedy of it all, knowing that we know that, he's completely gone off the rails, quite literally, the moments before he stepped out to deliver that supper. So it's just a wonderful satirical look at, the hospitality industry as well too. And that character, I think, is, yeah, in full strut mode, full peacock mode in that scene. I really really enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, and he does also symbolize, I feel like the working class, with their, working for these rich, super rich guests, so it is kind of symbolism for a class system, um, especially especially on a big resort like in White Lotus.
Definitely. I mean, you did talk about the class and power and privilege just a moment ago, and I think those are definitely themes that are really prevalent in the first season. And I'm curious to know, what else stood out for you, if anything, around season one in terms of the overall theme. What do you think Mike White was trying to say?
One of the main themes I thought of season one is the concept of identity. I mean, you see a lot of characters struggling with their identity, in particular, Rachel. So she's a newlywed, and she struggles with being a with being almost. She says, one of her quotes she says is, "I don't want to be a plus one the rest of my life." And Shane really belittles her career in several scenes in season one, and she's um, the mom calls her a trophy wife, and that's the role that she should be in, and she really struggles to find her identity, and she wants to pursue her career, and she just and now she's a plus one, and that's what she struggles with. Also, the dad, I feel like, struggles with identity as well. So Mark, I the his wife Nicole is the breadwinner of the family, and she seems like a more dominant role in the family. And Mark is kind of like, I feel like he feels emasculated at certain points in the season, and he also talks to his son almost like a almost like a friend, almost like a buddy way, instead of um, talking to him like a father should. I mean, talks to his son normally. He kind of like is very nonchalant about everything, and describes, confesses to his son that he cheated on their mom, and and is trying to be more like a buddy to his son. So I think he's kind of struggling with that as well. And so there's some of the examples of people characters struggling with their identity on the show.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that theme. That's a really strong one for me in not just first season, I think second and third too, which we can get into later. But since we are talking about the first season, as you said, I think that's a great example of identity crisis when you look at, the father. So that's definitely. very obvious to me. And I think the son too. Like if I look at Quinn Mossbacher, like he is one of the people who I do think at the end of season one does actually change and makes considerable change. He, if you recall, like at the end, doesn't go on the plane with them. He runs back to the rowing team and joins them. And I think throughout the whole series, the son is definitely literally he's the only one that ironically does maybe make that change very clearly throughout the whole arc of his character development, but people are kind of pointing to him, telling him who he is, right? The sister telling him who he is, the mother telling him who he is. There's a lot of people trying to tell him who he is, and I think he's at that stage as well in adolescence where he's trying to figure out literally who he is and realize who he is when he's not um, who he is in the family. So I think identity is a big theme for sure. Definitely, you see it with Rachel, like you said, and I also think every one of the characters in their own way. Like if I look at Shane, the husband, Shane is also somebody I think that is also very, very married, quite literally, to his identity and who he is and his self-importance. So that's one of the reasons why I think that pineapple room becomes such a huge issue because it's like I'm who I am. I'm Shane. I get what I want, and I should get my pineapple room. Like I think his identity is tied to his power and his privilege, and he's used to things going a certain way. So I think yeah, you definitely brought up a very strong theme for me as well around identity and how identity, we see it time and time again. It can be a cause for great pride for some people. They're really stuck on, I think, who they are, their identity, and taking pride in that identity. Um, you can see that definitely with the people that I just mentioned. So I think with Shane, you can see that sense of pride, or great pain and suffering, which you can see with his other half, like you mentioned with Rachel, who's feeling like a trophy. So her sense of identity is causing her a lot of suffering. Shane, in the same marriage, which is what's so wild about the pen with which Mike White kind of, writes his relationships with, is that he can show from the outside, we're seeing how the relationship might look. You've got these two people who, on paper, it looks great. They should be happy. They're literally newlyweds. And then from the inside, when we like literally peek through the curtains, um, and get into their boudoir, we can see the division already, like pretty much right away, and how somebody is sort of sinking into themselves and losing a sense of who they are. Another person is almost amplifying their sense of power and identity through being who they are. And like, I am the husband, I am the man, I am the breadwinner, I am, identity is kind of peppered throughout every single one of these character arcs. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think identity is a very strong theme.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the well, that's a great point about Shane and the because that's one of the questions I had of season one is why is Shane so obsessed with this pineapple room? Because maybe it is because it's tied to his identity, to have the best room, that's what I booked, and he wants that control also. I feel like he's big on controlling his wife, and she's put in that position, and he wants to be in control as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's very much about control. It's very much about appearances, optics, and also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we were talking a bit about season one being about power, privilege, wealth, and ultimately money. Who has it? Who doesn't have it? Who wants it? How to get it? How to keep it? It's almost omnipresent, this idea of wealth. And I think he's somebody, Shane, who is used to getting what he wants. And so it quite simply is, as Armand said, like they are special. This person thinks he's special. And I think even Rachel says it at some point too. It's like you're a baby crying for your pineapple room. Like I think he's just used to getting what he wants. And then when we see his mom, who I think is played brilliantly, by Molly Shannon when she shows up and has an interaction with Shane and Rachel. It becomes so obvious that yeah, he's sort of been coddled a little bit.
He's definitely a mama's boy for sure.
Yeah, he's used to kind of getting what he wants, and can tell his mom enables him to.
But I had a question. We're talking about Rachel and Shane. My question, one of my questions of the season too, is at the end of season one, why does Rachel go back to Shane in the end? Why does she stay with him?
Yeah, why does she stay? Man, why does she stay? I think that's one of the one things, if I have to nitpick about season one, that's one of the things that I really didn't care for, but I understand it. I think she went back because sometimes in life people go back. It's the easier thing to do. It's the devil you know, and it's at this point when she's kind of looked at the investment she's made, the sunk cost, maybe of going through the wedding, the the pain that she might have to endure if she leaves him. It could simply be just, you know what, I can be happy. I think the devil I know might be better than the devil I don't. I truly think it's just literally that's what people do sometimes. People choose the convenience. And I think Rachel, is I got the sense in a way that's somewhat relatable, I think, too, considering her situation, having just finished school. It's very relatable for me. I mean, she went to journalism school. I went to journalism school, and I think after finishing, I can remember thinking like, "What's my next move? I want to go save the world, my writing, and I want to like." There's something in that character that is deeply seeking for a sense of self.
And her career fulfills her too, right? She's passionate about her career, just like you are.
I think there's a certain archetype that might be drawn to. Um, Idealistically to journalism as well as a career, and just also to very relatably, when you finish school, the world is your oyster, but also there's a again, for many, a fear of like what comes next, because school gives you shelter for the time that you're in there, and so then to leave and then to go off, and that's a lot of change. And even when we we're at the pool with the two girls, so with the girls from the Mossbacher family, so Olivia and her friend, at the pool, they were talking to Rachel and asking her, and what I think is a very hilarious snide kind of um deceptively snide way, like asking her questions about who she is, what she does, who her husband is, and like getting to the core of the questioning, which is really like, oh, so okay, yeah, your husband's rich and he can basically take care of you. You're basically you know able to just kind of live off your husband now. Like that's kind of what they were trying to get her to see as well. And I think at that moment when I was watching that scene and watching Rachel and seeing the expression on her face, she was kind of realizing, yeah, okay, I guess at that moment, that's when I felt she was struggling with, okay, who am I now if I am in this, I'm married to this person, this family, and this is how people see me. Like, I think she's looking for identity. My long-winded way of saying, I feel like she's really seeking who she is. I think she's still looking to figure out who she is. And so that's how you can easily find yourself. You jump into a relationship because that'll define me. That'll help me define who I am, with someone who she said herself is very decisive. And so can then make those decisions for her. And then also, too, because of what she said about, wanting to save the world with her journalism and whatnot, I get the sense that this is a person who's very idealistic and wants to do good and probably sees and in some ways, again, with identity being a theme, is this idea of identifying with goodness and being good, right? So she's married into this family that when she realizes, and over time, like the veneer sort of wears off, like, oh, who have I married, and what kind of what have I gotten myself into? It starts to hit her, but I think only it only starts to hit her over the course of that weekend. And so you think about, we're seeing her over the course of a week. We're seeing her acting what we think, okay, that seems really impulsive. You've seen all this, and yet you're going to go back to this person. But what we're not seeing is, if you think about it, zoom out, considering everything that I think I just said personally about her journey and her becoming a woman and her understanding who she is, and then also what she gives up realistically if she decides to walk away. The fact that she just got married, and maybe if we were to revisit this family in another year, maybe she's not with them. But at that time, I could totally understand why she did what she did, because we're seeing a week. She's been with this person for actually not that long. We're seeing these people make sometimes what seem like very impulsive decisions, or dragging their heels on something that we think, why can't you just do this thing? But that's what I think makes the show brilliant too, is that you're seeing a character study, and it's like, why doesn't anybody do anything in reality? Like, we know people that struggle for years to make decisions or choices or changes. And so why did she go back? I kind of didn't want her to, but at the same time, I realized that sometimes people go back, and that's exactly what they do, right? When they're not sure what to do, they stay put, because the alternative is scary.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase ends real quick. Yeah, that was I was really shocked that she went back at the end. I mean, you know, to go back to all the douchebaggery that is Shane, and the way he belittled her career as well. I think she kind of you raised some great points. I think she kind of goes back too because there's still love there for sure, and also I think she feels protected by Shane as well, and I think she also enjoys the lifestyle too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah, maybe a little more than she wants to admit, right? And so that comfort to start thinking about your day to day and what that would look like if you have to give it up can be very compelling, to go, well, maybe I'll just wait it out. And also, to your point, yeah, I think there's love there too. I do think there is love, and I do think um, she, probably like any person who gets married, goes into it wanting the relationship to succeed. You don't think it's going to fail. And so I can also understand that if she was only with him, they were married for what, like we were saying, a week. So maybe after going through everything that they went through, you know, it could be so many things, like diving deeper into this character as well. If Rachel is someone who is a rescuer, and this has happened now, she now realizes, like, the incident with Armand, the um accidental killing of Armand, like if she's aware of that as well too, who knows, maybe she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back, because that's going to give me purpose now to go back to the relationship on more equal footing with this person as well. There's I mean, that's a lot. I'm diving much deeper into that character, but I'm stitching together some of the things that she was saying and doing, and I could kind of see like exactly why she went back. But yeah, Rachel is a very interesting character from season one, and I think one of the more frustrating things for a lot of people is watching her go back. But I want to ask you about some of the other characters, because we did have a full resort full of some pretty zany characters in Hawaii in season one. We talked about Armand, of course, and we just talked a little bit about Shane and Rachel, the newlywed couple. But I'm curious, what else stood out for you in terms of the cast of characters from season one?
I thought that Sydney Sweeney, who plays Olivia, she was hilarious in this season. Some of the best lines of the whole season I thought came from Olivia. She really symbolizes almost like a Gen Z, a typical Gen Z girl, and just like hilarious. There's one scene when she's talking to the dad finds out that his dad uh, didn't die of cancer; he died of AIDS. There's a whole there's a hilarious conversation between the two of them. She's very deadpan, and she says, "Yeah, maybe Grandpa was a power bottom. Does that make you feel better?" like just hilarious. Yeah.
Olivia is one of my favorites too. And I think it's because of what you said. Like she did such a good job, Sydney Sweeney, in that character. Um, as that character just because of the way she delivered the line. It wasn't even that the line was like itself hysterical, but it's how she delivered it. And you're right. I think I was trying to figure out what was it, other than the fact that she's a young girl that is delivering these lines with sort of that deadpan expression. She's very cerebral in the way that she played the role, and she's a young, pretty girl, but she has brains too. I could tell because the way that she sets up some of the lines, the way that she says certain lines, she's more aware than people I think have given her credit for, and she kind of plays mind games in in the season. Personally, I feel like when she says something, or there's nothing that she's saying that's not intentional. Like even when her friend has made this terrible mistake of like, plotting with her island lover to rob the family, like afterwards, like I'm pretty sure, Olivia is smart enough to put the pieces together and kind of looks at the friend. There's a certain glance that she gives at certain times. There's a certain way she asks certain questions at certain times of the staff to understand, for the friend to like alert the friend that I I know that this is the work of your lover, Kai. I know it. And I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say enough that you know that I know. And so she kind of plays with people that way. I personally found that she was, yeah, very, very, very deadpan, as you said, very intelligent though. And like, I think in a stealth kind of way. And so when you mentioned the father as being one of the scenes that you enjoyed between her and Olivia, I do think that, yeah, she loves her family, and I think that she's playing the Gen Z role very well.
And you're right. She is very smart. She loves her family. Um, she also they start out, her and her friend Paula. They have a great relationship that changes a lot during the season. I feel like she really loves her friendship with Paula, but at one point, when Paula has the love interest, she starts seeing the local um, yeah, guy who works at the resort. And then in one episode, she makes a play for him too. So I was kind of confused why she makes that play. Like, what's your theory on that? She wants what Paula has. She can't let Paula have. Is that what it is?
I mean, I wasn't surprised by it. I wasn't surprised by it. It's like,
Jealousy, I guess, right?
yeah, yeah, this is again another dynamic that I think is explored again in season three. And I don't think necessarily that it's maybe Mike White's intention to skewer female relationships, but there's a certain dynamic that Paula, yeah, speaks to here, like that's clearly been historical between the two women, is that in the past, Olivia has gone after somebody that Paula liked, or maybe Paula perceives Olivia stole somebody. You know how when you're younger and you think about through the lens of ownership and possession, it's kind of like that person stole that person from me, which is kind of an interesting thing for me to say that now as an adult. But at any rate, Paula did mention something about this being not a one-time event, and so I think with this character, based only on what I saw in season one, I think this comes down to control as well too. When I look at the dynamic between Olivia and Paula, and it's clear from what Paula says early on in the episode and a conversation between the two girls where I think Olivia even reassures Paula that she's not going to go after her man and you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to do that. It indicates to me that in the past she has done that. And so Paula definitely has some precedent for her worries and her insecurities there. And so it's not a surprise to me why she wants to keep Kai a secret. With Olivia, well, we see that Olivia really, really loves Paula as well. And perhaps just boils down to the fact that she's looking for that validation and attention. And this boy who's just now come in and blown up her spot is taking away some of that attention that she was getting from her friend. So he becomes a problem. And maybe the way that Olivia knows best to fix it is to use the tools at her disposal. And she is a pretty young girl. And so she simply used her sexuality as an attempt to create a wedge between Paula and Kai. Of course, it backfires, but that might be just her go-to tool. The other thing, and there's so many things here to, consider, but I also wonder about the dynamic between Paula and Olivia in terms of the differences in how they were brought up. Because Olivia being, born with kind of a silver spoon in her mouth, maybe used to getting what she wants. And I did see this dynamic growing up sometimes. More so with women, but perhaps it also exists competitively with men. With girls, sometimes they will compete. We're socialized to compete. And if you're in a situation where there's a group of girls and a guy expressed interest in maybe one of the girls, if there's somebody else in the group that is used to getting that kind of attention and validation, she may very rightfully believe that that attention and validation should be going to her, or that she's somehow superior to her friend. If Olivia somehow does believe that on some level that she's superior to Paula, and again, the dynamic could be foundationally due to the fact that it seems to me that Olivia is coming from more wealth than Paula is, then she's used to getting what she wants, and ergo, if Paula has something, I should also have that thing too. So I also think there could be that kind of twisted dynamic there too, where there's more of a frenemy tip. I know that Olivia loves Paula, but I think she may also be jealous of her just as a person. I recall even at the beginning of the episode when Olivia's mother was talking about Paula and, saying how beautiful Paula was and how beautiful her physique was. And, Olivia, of course, I think any daughter might naturally cringe a bit. But if I take a step back and think about the whole dynamic, that might also be a signal that there might be some jealousy there, or that Olivia, growing up as she did, may also envy Paula's independence, or even envy Paula's identity itself. Because I actually don't know if Paula is biracial, but I think she is. And so there could be something in Olivia as well that feels the need to, I don't know, keep Paula there as proof for Olivia of her righteousness, where everyone else is so problematic. But not her, because she has her cool, diverse friend, and her friend's approval is really, really key to her own sense of identity. I know that's really getting deeper than perhaps just what we see on screen, but I think there's a lot of things that can be unpacked there between the two of them, and clearly some kind of a historical precedent between them. But yeah, there's a lot of things there. Control, you know, run of the mill jealousy, and I think also too Olivia's great need for approval and for validation, and also just to make sure she can hang out with her friend. Like, from a logistical point of view, it's not really that convenient to have your friend hook up with someone while you're on a limited vacation, because then it takes away time that you could be spending together.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, you really don't know the backstory of her, but you mentioned that maybe she is, not as coming from not of a a rich upper class family, and that has created some kind of disdain for wealth that they have. His family too. I feel like there's lots of conversations during the season of them having, conversations about the world, and you know, it really symbolizes to me like privilege, and what specifically white privilege, and classism as well. And Paula is in a relationship with Kai, who works at the resort, and convinces him that you know to that her family, not her family specifically, but took this away from you, as being this part of your culture, and you need to do this to get ahead, which is ends up robbing the family when they're away from the room.
which would lead her to believe that she's doing some kind of Robin Hood-esque type of act to allow Kai, who I guess she just kind of recently met, to rob the family. So in her mind, it was totally justified. So I do wonder, like, I wonder why she felt that way, and in part it has to be because she just recognizes that the family will not miss this wealth at all, that it will mean nothing to them, but it will mean everything to him. So there's a vibe for me of, she seems to understand and have more empathy for Kai than the others. And so, not that the others know Kai, but I think, yeah, her energy was just something where I felt like, she really must understand this on a more personal level. So, yeah, I thought that was a really interesting dynamic between Olivia and Paula, and I think those two characters really were, yeah, well fleshed out, well cast too. I think both actresses did a great job there, and I know we're still on season one, and there's so many other things we could talk about with this season, but I wanted to just check in and see. Is there any other character that we want to take a look at right now as season one? I know there's quite a few. um, we could be here all night, but any other honorable mentions for your favorite characters from season one?
You have to talk about Jennifer Coolidge, who plays Tanya. One of my favorite characters of all the seasons is Belinda as well.
Yep, I agree. You hit on the two that I had on my list. I also had Tanya and Belinda on my list for to round out my favorite characters. Yeah, so tell me a bit more about either your choice, Tanya or Belinda.
Well, just I mean, J- Tanya has so many great lines in the show. I'm trying to think of a couple. I'll get back to you on some of her lines, but I really like Belinda on the show. You see her more in. I feel like her character comes out more in the third season, and she has a lot more to do in the third season. But I just like she works on the resort. She loves her job. She's almost like the most calm character on the show as well. She calms Tanya down in several scenes. She's almost like very stable throughout the whole show, even though she's surrounded by all this chaos. She's almost like the calmness in the storm throughout the whole season.
Well said. Yeah, I see that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was also wanted to ask you, Greg, the most hated character on the show.
By whose definition?
I feel, boy, by my definition, I hated him. All right, I hated Greg. Okay, from the first episode you see him, I just did not like his vibe. My question is, do you was he conning Tanya the whole time from the start?
That is such a good question, and I was going to toss it your way because now, and obviously spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen season one, two, or three, we're gonna go all over the place. So hopefully you have seen it. We're gonna definitely be spoiling things here. But yes, do I think that he was conning her from season one? I do believe so. Yes, I do believe so. Yeah, I do believe so. What? Well, I mean, I think season three for me. Well, we got to go back to season two, which I know again we're gonna do a deeper dive into both seasons two and three. But season two, just the Coles notes, just for context and my evidence for why I believe this. Like, I think season one, like we couldn't have known anything about we couldn't have known enough, excuse me, about Greg to have that opinion. But season two, considering what he puts in motion, right? I have to believe that he's got to be some kind of a sociopath. Like he's got to be a grifter. There's just there's something about it that seems a little bit more sinister in season two, and then in season three, I think yeah, he has darker sociopathic tendencies, and just the way he kind of switched up on Tanya in season two, and then went to all the lengths to work with the gays to take Tanya off the board. I just feel as if there are things now when I go back and see season one, I go, oh man, I think he did that intentionally. Or I think he saw a mark in Tanya, think he saw somebody who was wounded and realized he could take advantage of her. That's what I think. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching it, I didn't think I didn't think he had this plan. I didn't think he was conning her. But then, as you see in the later seasons, yeah, I believe it was a con from the beginning as well. But when I was watching season one, I just thought that he was just they were just hitting it off well. They were, but and then you see more and more of him, and including in the other seasons. So I do believe that he was conning her looking back. But when I was watching season one, I didn't think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't think so either. I just, in hindsight, going back and seeing the breadcrumbs, well, wow. Yeah, yeah, this is darker than I thought, for sure.
And then, do you think that? I mean, in the end, spoiler alert of season one, Tanya meets her untimely demise. She almost makes it out, right? She tells the gay. She says the gays are trying to kill me, and she almost survives. But then she hits her head on the side of the boat. I'm like, no, no.
Yeah, which is this classic Tanya and classic Jennifer Coolidge, and I love that.
That's very on brand for Tanya. Yeah. But I was so shocked. I was like, no, just when she's about to make it out, right? Do you think she had to die? Do you think she was like she had to be killed?
Oh, um, in terms of the story, to advance the story, well, I guess it depends. That's a good question. I mean, did she have to die? Well, I mean, no, but I think the choice to kill her off, if in fact, and I don't actually know this, but if in fact Mike White was planning on doing, let's say, like 4 or 5 seasons, I think he's already talked about, his plans for what he's hoping for season four. Um, I think he's thinking about the arc, and in which case, Tanya's death made more sense from pushing the story and the narrative than keeping her alive. Both season one and two were accidental deaths, right? They didn't have to happen, and I think that's what made the conclusions so interesting. Is just after going through all of that, for her to die at the end of season two in that way, like that's of course she would die in that way, So it kind of made sense, even though it seems extreme. Like it makes total sense. So I think Mike White, as a writer, makes some choices. Some people might say that some of the choices he makes might be a little convenient, and I think that's been some of the critique of season three in particular, that there were some choices made that were a little bit too convenient to help move the storyline along. But when I look at the characters that he's created, I think, yeah, that's exactly how Tanya would die. It makes total sense, actually, right? So,
Yeah, you're right. She also says at one point, she says, "Death is the only thing I haven't experienced."
yeah.
It's almost like there's a lot of foreshadowing that happens, including that one. Yeah.
He does do a great job of giving us those moments, right? Where he's foreshadowing. He's basically telling us. And there's a lot of that in season three too, knowing what we know about who dies. There's a lot of foreshadowing like that. And you're right, that's a big one for Tanya when she says that about death being the only immersive experience she has an experience.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Like we know where it's going, right? It's just a matter of how is it going to get there. So yeah, I do think Tanya's death, although people, myself included, obviously were sad to see her go. I think her story had come to its end, and I think it's yeah, it kind of made sense to me. I felt like that makes sense. That's how she would go out. Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about Armand's Last Supper and how much we both really enjoyed that scene. I know there's so many beautiful scenes throughout the whole series, and I would love to know, Drew, what your favorite um, scenes are, and if not favorite scenes, maybe, or even your most shocking scenes.
I mean, the most shocking scene for me is I mean, Armand when he is, um, how, how should I put this? Doing a number two, all right, into Shane's bag. Okay. I mean, like, you know that that was happening. We didn't need to see the actual, we didn't need to see him actually do that, you know.
Yeah,
We actually saw it come out, which was very shocking to me. Okay, I did not need to see that. I knew it was happening. I did not need to see the actual, him taking a shit in the bag. All right, that was one of my most scenes. I was like, "Whoa, that's wild." Yeah,
yeah, that was something I don't think I've seen on television. The luggage dookie was a first for me too.
yeah.
Um, and I thought it was hilarious. I'm actually I'm actually at the point of view I'm glad they showed it just because it was so shocking, and I think Armand was part of a few very shocking moments for me. Like he was a scene stealer every time he was on the camera. But yeah, that scene definitely luggage dookie, and also the scene where Shane catches him and Belinda walk in on him eating ass on like the one of the male. I'm going to call him like a cabana boy. I can't remember his the character's name, but one of the staff members at the White Lotus. I thought that scene was also hilarious as well too.
No, that was. Oh yeah, that was a shocking scene for sure. When he walks in on him, going to town on, yeah, his coworker. Yeah.
As one does in the middle of the day during a lunch rush. But yeah, it was honestly a great season. The first season, of course, so it was fresh. It certainly unique, and because it was the singular voice of Mike White as a writer, director, like really honestly, it felt almost like watching a film. And that particular type of satire and dramedy that he does really, really well, I think really, yeah, season one really cemented him on the scene for people that weren't aware of who he was. He came out swinging with that first season, and it was such a fun time to go back and revisit that with you, Andrew. And I know we're going to have a lot more White Lotus conversation coming up in the next episode as well. And before we do wrap up, any final thoughts on White Lotus season one?
It was just a great season. I loved it. I really like Mike White's all the symbolism throughout this season and every season as well, which we'll talk about in our next episode too. And just like the themes of colonialism and privilege and classism as well, and identity, which we talked about. I think that was a big part of season one as far as the themes.
Absolutely. And I do look forward to getting into the next episode where, of course, we have all the good stuff to look forward to from season two as we break that down. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our White Lotus conversation. And yeah, stay tuned for more in our next episode as we look at seasons two and maybe three, and maybe we'll pepper some more of season one in there too. Just for fun. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
Before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on Instagram at culture_alchemy. We want to keep the conversation going.
Until next time, alchemists,
Stay curious.